Hey guys, Matt, IronTrap Garage, and we are working on the ruined Roadster, the green 32 Roadster that we've been making less old man and boring and way cooler. So last video was a huge one. We got the engine installed, did a little bit of wiring, a little fiddling, plumbing, some fuel lines, and we got it to come to life in the car with the gas tank. Super exciting. Now basically we have everything else we need to do. So the goal in today's video is to button up all the little odds and ends and get this thing at least moving under its own power. We're still waiting on a radiator, so we don't know if we'll get that in this video or not, but we're going to show you all the little details to doing this swap and getting the actually running and driving it in the car, and some of the little neat little items that we're putting on the car along the way. So let's get started. All right, so first things first, I got a giant mess over here. We have a giant mess. We have a transmission that's been draining gear oil for days. It's kind of a mess, but you see all this black turd here, or this metal and all kinds of goo. What I was doing is taking one of these old finned coils. So this coil was actually a 12-volt one, but I'm very worried with one of these coils leaving you sitting on the side of the road because they are old. We don't know much about them, and so it's easier just to melt all the junk out. So basically I take the oxy torch. I kind of realized after I did it would have been interesting to show, but I just basically knocked all the Bakelite material out, which you can see here. All these little pieces at the top, there's a little ring, and then you just use the torch and you melt all this nastiness out, and then you can pull out the actual coil itself, and then you end up with this coil cover then that is nice cast piece, and a stock modern external coil will fit right in. So what I'm planning on doing is putting this in Eastwood ultrasonic. Steve stole from his kitchen some dishwasher pods that we've been putting in. It seems to work pretty well. So what we're going to do is put this in. It's fairly clean, but it would be nice to make it just a little bit cleaner, but we don't want to blast it and make it look brand new. So I'm going to drop that in there, put a little more water in there, turn it on, let it get hot and clean. In the meanwhile, Steve's working on getting the solenoid right there. So these are these solenoids we showed in the Lincoln video. I kind of like them because you can use the push button here to start it in the engine bay if you're trying to tune or work on the engine. But we're going to mount one of these on the firewall right about there, down low. And we're going to try and utilize any of the holes that are already in the firewall. So I think I'm going to mount the coil right here. There's a grommet hole, and then there's another bolt here that we're going to make a bracket or mount with the existing bracket for the coil there. I also found through some searching, confirmed that a group 25, pull this sucker out of here on my own with one hand. Here we go. A group 25 12-volt battery. Got it at Walmart because it's cheap. And these batteries actually are the right dimensions that it fits. As you saw, I just pulled it out of the stock battery tray. So you can put a 12-volt battery in right in the stock tray and not have to change any of that stuff. So we can just reuse any ground wires or anything. We're changing the car to negative ground instead of positive ground and 12-volt. With the hopped up flathead, it'll help. So I got that. Steve's going to work on also getting the battery and some of the preliminary wiring done. We're going to get an old glass, not old, but a glass fuse box and hide it up underneath so that we can fuse some of the circuits, and it'll set us up so we can do turn signals and all that. So we're going to work on some of this so we don't have this big battery just sitting all clunky in there, get the proper battery wires, solenoid all hooked up, and hopefully we can start this thing inside the car with a switch instead of sparking wires like we did before, which was a little scary.
All the way to the right, that'll turn it on then.
The normal?
Yeah.
All right. Clean. All right, so got this coil all painted up. I used some one shot and a little pinstriping brush, and we let it sit over all day yesterday in the sun, nice and dried up. And we also ran it through the ultrasonic to get all the dirt and grime and stuff out of the inside. So we just got a coil in. Steve, we're utilizing two holes that were already in the firewall. Oh, shit, hold on.
Oh, on the inside.
Yep, go ahead.
Yep.
That's good.
Yep.
Looks like it should be there. Love it. Yeah, I like that.
Oh yeah.
That's cool.
Oh yeah.
It's got just a little age to it, but still is shiny.
Mm-hmm. Right. Just do it no matter what.
It sits in like that.
Oh yes.
And then this one is actually just a tiny bit bigger. I mean, this one I bet if you just lightly tap it in.
Mm-hmm.
The other one I tested with was just a tiny bit smaller and it fell in. This one I bet you could just with the rubber mallet.
Mm-hmm.
Or just chamfer the edge.
Right. Yeah.
bit.
Just maybe do that
Now do we probably want the wires
to the back.
to the back like that. And yeah, I mean it might even just be this casting needs a little cleaning up.
Right. Yeah. Just hit that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean it's right there. So if we make that a snug fit, and like you said, put just maybe a little silicone down so when it touches it kind of keeps it from rocking. But I think this is so tight it's gonna
Right.
it won't be an issue. There we go. I think that'll do it. I don't want to press it in because it might be very difficult to get out.
Right. Might be the last time it comes out.
This might never come out again. As well as this fits.
Uh-huh.
Alright, so wires to the back. That's alright. The next person can do exactly what I did and just break and burn the coil out.
Exactly. Get a hammer and a torch.
It'll come right out.
It'll be fine.
Get it hot enough, it'll fall out.
It'll be fine.
I mean, that's about as good as it gets.
Yep.
That feels tight. And then Alright, so Steve and I have been tag teaming this and getting everything going. We got the coil mounted up in. I was able to get the little piece of chrome or stainless trim back on, which looks bitchin'. I had to put a little bit of silicone underneath of it because when you uncrimp it, we kind of were talking about, I think there probably was some kind of tool, like Steve had a good idea, like a soup can would have been made where they folded this edge over, and it's hard to do it after you've unfolded it. So got it pretty good. I just put a little silicone under it so it stays in place. Steve's got it all wired up, wires running down. And then what I did was, I had the bright idea, which was a lot harder than I expected it to be, to take an original two-wire push button starter switch and make it fit in the original 4-banger. So the 4-banger had a pull cable right here that you pulled on, and then the cable went down to the starter, and it activated the starter. There was a lever on the starter that connected. So with this, we need an electric push button switch. So I took an original push button switch, and then I found a door pull, an old like Art Deco chrome door pull that fit basically perfectly in the hole in the column drop. And I machined a new shaft for that, which was extremely difficult because it was basically like machining a under 1/4 inch bolt or rod, and it was very, very difficult, and it took me a lot of swearing yesterday, and I broke a few of them. It was tough, but I got it. I made a little bracket that sandwiches underneath of the steering drop, and now we have this button. Should work. I checked it with the ohm meter, and it was doing everything it's supposed to. So now we have electric hooked up, and I think, do you have a jumper hooked up, Steve?
Right here.
All right, so we're gonna hook the jumper up, and we're gonna see, oh, take it out of gear because we do have things connected.
Definitely need it out of gear.
And we're gonna see if the starter button works. Is the ignition all wired up, or you have that off still?
Yeah, everything's wired.
Okay.
Everything's done except a power line to the switch itself.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And we'll see. We'll see if we get if it might just start. Not only will it crank, it might just start.
You never know.
All right, so switch is off. Yep.
Yep.
All right.
Feeling lucky?
I hope. So that was exciting. We had something was sticking on. We're not sure if a solenoid was. We noticed that the solenoid has a battery spot on it. I didn't realize that solenoids could be. I thought they were pretty much any which way, but this one somehow we got that messed up. We checked my little push button switch that I did, and that was still looking fine. So we're gonna try again. This time we're going to have the power wire. You may want to just take that wing nut off so that if we have to quick disconnect power, we can. We're going to put a disconnect to shut the battery off in the car. I'm waiting for it to come in the mail. So for now we just have the, like most cars are, no disconnect. But we have one of them in the DeLorean Roadster. I really like it. And in that instance, it would have been nice because we could have just turned the switch. So
I'm going to leave it on. It's pretty loose without it on, so I'll just leave it on. Just snug it down instead of tightening it, so we can get it off quick.
Okay. All right. I guess connect everything up. We had a problem with this solenoid in the Lincoln. We used one of these, and the little push button was sticking a little bit. Now, it only was sticking when we were using this button, but we also suspect that a little bit. So could be user error, could be any number of things, or neutral. We'll see what happens.
All right.
The joys of doing everything from scratch. All
right.
Try my button.
Ignition on.
Okay. Well, that's the
ignition off.
All right, so even though we know electrical, it's still a little bit of a mystery to me when it comes to positive ground. So there's some weird stuff with solenoids. We don't know, but we think that solenoid we had, that we grabbed out of our dozens of solenoids, might have been a positive ground one or something. It
seemed like it, yeah.
Something weird. So what we were finding was it was getting what? It was bleeding power through the starter switch post. through the solenoid. So I don't know what was going on there. So we put this solenoid on, which is another older one, but we noticed on the bottom of it, it actually said ground, like the body was supposed to be grounded. So the only thing I could think is it was supposed to be isolated or something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I'm not sure.
So now we have just the battery hooked up. We have the wire from my switch that I made hooked up, and the starter isn't connected. So I'm going to connect this. We're going to see if we can get the solenoid to work. Click on and off with my switch. All right, you ready?
Yep. You got the ignition on?
Oh, here, okay. User air, ignition on.
There we go. Well, that thing sounds nice and strong too, man.
All right, so now you should get something. Let's check, do you want to check your coil with your ignition switch?
Yep.
Just make sure we got power going when I turn this on. So it's positive on the...
There you go. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So we should be able to fire it now.
Mm-hmm.
We're lucky it didn't fire with the starter on that one.
Yeah.
Because that would have been...
Right, yeah.
That would have been miserable. Actually, it probably would have killed it because it would have kicked back on the starter and probably killed the thing. So, well, like, killed the engine.
Mm-hmm. Something would have happened.
Yeah, not good.
Yep.
All right, so we'll wire this back up and...
Hope for the best. Electricity is easy when it works. When it doesn't, it gets confusing.
It's just that whole positive ground and switches and solenoids and...
That just...
Like,
that
we can't use the starter button switch from a positive ground because it's only got one terminal.
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't...
No, yeah, it doesn't.
There's probably a way to wire it. I'm just not smart enough, and I don't care to take the time to figure it out.
Yeah, you'd have to wire it through, run it through a relay.
Yeah. When we have a parts stash, so I just
Right.
we just get an old one that's what we want.
Yep.
All right.
Right.
Yeah, Moonsaw, we were squirting a carb and he's suspect.
Ready? Yeah,
he's like,
ears up.
All right.
Okay, ignition on.
Yep, let's try it. Try it again.
All right. Ignition on.
Let me see. We didn't adjust anything yet.
No, everything's just...
All right, go ahead again.
Yep. Ignition on.
All right, well that's a start. Let's play with the carbs after lunch.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, and then the nuts as well.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I don't have any nuts.
There's two nuts.
There we go. Honestly, if we put the two bottom ones in and we just put these two in, it should be fine for moving it around. Well, if you want to put them all in so they don't get lost, that's also...
Probably just as good to do that, I think.
All right, so we just temporarily bolted the B radiator and the grill back on. We're going to have to wait to finish the rest of the swap until we get the radiator in. It's at the shop getting record, but we throw all these parts in because A, it looks cooler, and B, you know, it just looks cooler. So I'm going to get it started. I think we got it starting and running okay now, ish, and we're going to jump in and see if the clutch works. So see what happens. And I'm going to stink like exhaust fumes.
Yeah. Well, it's got floorboards in it now. It won't be as bad.
It doesn't help. All right, let's try all our switches and gadgets we did here. All right, so got the car outside, and we got the switch all working. This is pretty cool. So got the ignition switch here that is the original 32 that we wired up, and then this is where the pull would have been for the B to pull the lever to start it. So now it is a normal push button start. So you flick this on for ignition. Starts right up. Hell yeah, brother. Awesome. All right, so got it outside. Everything was pretty successful. We didn't tune the carburetors or anything real good. We just kind of twisted the screws a little bit, got the linkage hooked up. We have a zip tie hooked to a spring for a throttle return, but that's what you do on these small victories just to get yourself to a good point. So we've now pulled it out of the shop. The clutch seems to work fine. It moved the car okay, nothing sounded funny, but we couldn't run it very long because, like I mentioned earlier, the radiator situation. But to kind of wrap it all up, so we ended up basically using as much of the kind of original stuff as we could. So for the clutch, with doing this swap, we literally took the clutch arm off of the B, the 4-cylinder transmission, slid it on the V8, used all the linkage. Steve said when he hooked it up, he literally didn't even have to adjust the Heim joints. It just fit right up, and the clutch felt really good. Everything felt fine on it. So we were able to use that and kind of utilize a lot of the parts. The power generator's all wired up, so we should be charging okay. The only downside we had with filming that happened is something happened with the Mallory distributor. The last time we went to start it, before we just drove it out to kind of fine tune the carbs, it just lost spark after firing once. It fired once, died, fired again, and then it wouldn't do anything. So I don't know if something happened with the Mallory distributor. I know those Unilite distributors, they have some stuff that they sometimes are a little funky. I don't know how old it is. So we had our run stand, stock 59AB distributor with Petronix in it. Tried and true, threw it on, thing fired up and ran great, and that's what you saw there. So we're probably going to continue with that. We've used it on a bunch of the cars. It's totally fine. There's really nothing wrong with that setup, you know, so it's probably what we're going to go with this. So now we got this all hooked up. We're basically just waiting for the radiator, and then we can kind of finish buttoning everything up. Once we get the radiator in, we're going to bring it back in the shop. I'm going to tackle building an exhaust. We'll finish buttoning some of the wiring up. We'll probably take it for a first test drive without having any headlights or anything. Hell, last summer I was driving around with no headlights anyways. Totally fine. But that's what we're going to do. Get it going. Small victories. Drive it with the mechanical brakes a little bit. Make sure everything with the engine swap works well, and then we'll start doing our upgrades, much like a young guy would have done in the 40s or early 50s. So it's been a lot of fun to kind of recreate history here by doing this with this car. So thank you guys for following along. Let me know what you think of the flathead engine in the 32 Roadster moving under its own power now. Thanks guys. Catch you later.